Okay, so picture this. We're climbing a volcano. No, not just any volcano. We're talking Chimborazo in the Andes, back in 1802.
Wow.
And our guide, it's Alexander von Humboldt. Now, you might not recognize that name as quickly as, say, Darwin, but I guarantee you this guy was a scientific rock star back in his day.
Absolutely. And what's really incredible about Humboldt is he wasn't just out there for the thrill of it, the adventure. He was meticulously documenting everything he saw on that climb.
Really? Like what?
Oh, everything. I mean, we're talking plants changing with the altitude, the air thinning as he goes higher and higher, even those little lichens clinging to the rocks.
Oh.
And this is where we start to see the seeds of his revolutionary idea that nature is a web with every single thing connected.
It's this web of life concept that we really want to explore in this deep dive. And to do that, we're going to be using Andrea Wolf's fantastic book, The Invention of Nature.
It's a great book.
Yeah, it really brings Humboldt to life, not just as a scientist, but as this incredible adventurer, a thinker who was light years ahead of his time.
Right. And Wolf does such a good job of showing how Humboldt's ideas didn't just sit on a shelf somewhere. They rippled out through history, shaping how we understand, how we view the environment. Everything from Darwin's theories to the ecological movements that we see happening today.
Okay, so are you ready to climb this volcano with us?
I'm ready.
Buckle up, because this deep dive is going to uncover how Alexander von Humboldt completely changed the way we see the natural world.
I think a good place to start is with Humboldt's early life, right? I mean, the guy was born in 1769, a Prussian aristocrat. Not exactly the kind of background you'd expect for a guy who ends up scaling mountains and hacking his way through the Amazon.
No, not at all. You'd picture him in a stuffy palace somewhere.
Right.
But even as a kid, Humboldt was just completely obsessed with the natural world.
Yeah, he was.
In the book, Wolf talks about how he was constantly collecting, like, insects, rocks, anything he could get his hands on.
He was. And, you have to think about the time period here. This is the Enlightenment, right? Thinkers are really emphasizing observation and experimentation, and Humboldt was a product of that, but he took it to a whole other level.
He really did. He's like hardwired for discovery.
He was.
Geology, anatomy, he even messed around with electricity.
Yeah.
But things weren't, like, all rosy for him. His family life was kind of complicated.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
His mother, she was very demanding, and he always felt, I think, a little bit overshadowed by his older brother, Wilhelm, who was brilliant. And I think that really fueled his drive to kind of carve out his own path, to prove himself through his exploration and through his discoveries.
Makes you wonder if all of that, with his family is what pushed him towards those, like,
Yeah.
far-off lands, Like, he was looking for something, anything beyond what his kind of, I guess, privileged life had to offer.
It's possible.
It is.
And get this, in his early travels in Europe, he even meets Captain Bligh.
No way. The bounty guy.
Yeah, the mutiny.
That's wild.
But all of these early journeys, they were crucial for him. It's where he really honed those observation skills, learned how to navigate different cultures, just absorbed knowledge like a sponge. It was all preparation for his, big, grand adventure.
Exploring the new world, South America.
Exactly.
And that's where things get really interesting. I mean, this expedition, it took him 5 years to plan.
5 years.
5 years. He had to overcome all these political roadblocks, charm his way into getting permission from the Spanish king, the whole 9 yards.
But he did it. Finally, in 1799, he steps foot in Cumaná, Venezuela.
Can you imagine that?
Oh, yeah.
Setting foot on a continent teeming with life you've never even seen before. Colors, the sounds.
The heat.
The heat.
It must have felt like landing on another planet.
Totally. And he wasn't just there to sightsee.
No.
Humboldt was on a mission. He wanted to document everything he could about this new world. He traveled through vast grasslands, navigated the mighty Orinoco River, climbed the towering peaks of the Andes. It's amazing.
And it's important to remember he wasn't just collecting specimens like some, detached observer.
Right.
He was constantly searching for connections, for patterns, trying to understand how everything interacted, from the tiniest insect to those vast climate systems.
He was basically inventing the field of ecology, like, as he went along.
Yeah, he was.
Okay, before we dive too deep into the South American adventures, there's this fascinating friendship we need to unpack.
Okay.
Humboldt and,
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Yes, Goethe, the literary giant.
Yeah.
The author of Faust. But he wasn't just a poet. He was also deeply interested in science and in nature.
Oh, yeah, they hit it off right away.
Right.
Conducting experiments together, going on hikes, having these deep philosophical discussions late into the night.
They were like the ultimate intellectual power couple.
They were.
And get this, some scholars even think that Humboldt's ideas about how everything in nature is interconnected, they might have actually influenced the character of Mephistopheles in Goethe's Faust.
That is fascinating.
It's a wild thought, really.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? This friendship really underscores a crucial element of Humboldt's work. He was breaking down those artificial barriers between science and art.
Yeah, that's true.
They both believed that to truly understand nature, you need more than just cold observation. You need intuition, emotion, a sense of awe and wonder.
Okay, now with that in mind, let's jump back to South America, where Humboldt's expeditions are about to change the world.
So Humboldt, he spends 5 years crisscrossing South America.
5 years.
5 years. Imagine him, really, imagine him in the Andes, in the Amazon rainforest, just meticulously documenting every single thing he encounters. And it's not just plants and animals.
Thanks now.
No, he was fascinated by indigenous cultures, the impact of colonialism, the social and political dynamics of the region. He was really looking at the whole picture.
That's what makes him so unique, right? He wasn't just a biologist or geologist. He was this incredible synthesizer, connecting all these dots between different fields, really showing how everything is intertwined.
Exactly. He saw the natural world not as this collection of isolated specimens, but as this intricate, interconnected web of life. And, way back then, he was already noticing the destructive consequences of human actions, especially the damage that colonialism was doing to the environment.
So he was like a 19th century environmental activist.
He really was, sounding the alarm about deforestation and unsustainable practices centuries before it became mainstream. But it wasn't just about collecting data and raising warnings.
It wasn't.
No. Humboldt was also a gifted storyteller.
Okay.
His books, like Cosmos and Personal Narrative, they became international bestsellers.
Wow.
He took these really complex scientific ideas and made them accessible to a wide audience.
So he knew how to connect with people. He was able to weave his observations into these really compelling narratives, He brought the wonders of the natural world to life for people back in Europe. He was like a 19th century science influencer.
I like that, yeah. A 19th century science influencer. And that's where I think his real impact lies. Think about Charles Darwin, whose theory of evolution was deeply shaped by Humboldt's observations on the distribution of species.
So he directly influenced Darwin.
Darwin himself called Humboldt's personal narrative his, and I quote, constant companion during his voyage on the Beagle.
That's amazing. So Humboldt's work was like this direct inspiration for Darwin's groundbreaking ideas.
It really was, and it goes beyond just Darwin. Henry David Thoreau, with his writings on nature and self-reliance, he was deeply influenced by Humboldt's emphasis on direct experience, the interconnectedness of life.
And what about John Muir?
John Muir.
The father of the American National Park System. His vision of preserving these vast wilderness areas, it seems like it has Humboldt written all over it.
You're absolutely right. Muir, he was profoundly inspired by Humboldt's view of nature as this sacred web of life that needs protecting. And Humboldt's ideas resonated with artists and writers and poets, too. Oh, yeah. Think about the Romantic movement, with its emphasis on the sublime power of nature and that interconnectedness of all things.
Oh, wow. So he kind of provided the intellectual foundation for this whole cultural movement.
Exactly. And his influence continues even today. Think about it. Modern ecologists, they're building upon Humboldt's work, using all this sophisticated technology to map and understand the intricate relationships within ecosystems. So yeah, he might not be as famous as some of the figures that he inspired, but Humboldt's legacy, it's all around us. It's in the way we view the planet as this complex, interconnected system. It's in our growing awareness of, our impact on the environment. It's in those global efforts to conserve and protect the natural world.
It's incredible.
It is. Okay, now let's circle back to that Chimborazo climb for a moment.
Okay.
This was more than just a physical feat for Humboldt. It was a pivotal moment for him. It really shaped his thinking. It was you could say, his invention of nature.
So what was it about standing on top of that volcano, the highest point on Earth at that time? What sparked this revolution in his understanding?
Well, remember, back then, everybody believed that Chimborazo was the highest peak in the world. And as Humboldt is ascending, he's meticulously recording everything. the changes in vegetation, the temperature, the atmospheric pressure. He was paying attention to how the plant communities shifted with the altitude, creating these distinct zones of life. And each of those zones adapted to very specific conditions.
So he was basically creating a three-dimensional map of life on that mountain,
Yeah.
showing how everything from the smallest plant to these vast climate systems was interwoven.
Exactly. He even created this visual representation of it.
He did.
Oh, yeah. It's a diagram that's actually pretty iconic now. It shows the distribution of plants on Chimborazo. And it wasn't just this, like, list of species.
It wasn't.
No, it was this visual map of an entire ecosystem showing how life was interconnected across all those different altitudes.
It was like turning a mountain into a living laboratory.
Exactly. And it was on Chimborazo that he fully grasped that interconnectedness of nature. He saw it on this grand scale. And it wasn't just about individual plants and animals. It was about the invisible forces at play, the climate, the altitude, the geology, all of it shaping life in this dynamic interplay.
It was mind-blowing, you know. He wasn't just discovering new species.
He was.
He was revealing this whole new way of seeing the world.
He was synthesizing all this existing knowledge and observations into this powerful new vision of nature. And it's a vision that we're still grappling with today.
It's amazing to think that this one climb, this one moment of insight, had such a profound impact on how we understand our planet.
Absolutely. Okay, so Humboldt returns to Europe,
Yeah.
a scientific celebrity. What happens next?
Oh, he was like a 19th century rock star. I mean, feted by royalty, sought after by all these intellectuals. His lectures were packed with eager audiences. Everyone wanted a piece of Alexander von Humboldt.
That's great. He settled in Paris, and he spends the next 2 decades writing and publishing, drawing on this massive trove of data and observations that he had accumulated during his travels.
Wow. But it wasn't just dry scientific reports. Humboldt, he understood the power of storytelling.
Did.
He knew how to engage people with science.
And his magnum opus, Cosmos, that was a masterpiece of science communication, I think.
Yeah.
It wove together astronomy, geology, botany, human history into this grand narrative of the universe.
Wow.
And it was a massive bestseller. Translated into dozens of languages, he brought his vision of nature to a global audience.
Incredible. But even with all this success, he never lost sight of kind of the social and political implications of his work.
Never.
Did he?
He was a very outspoken critic of colonialism and slavery. He recognized the impact, the devastating impact that European expansion was having on indigenous cultures and on the environment.
Yeah.
It's what makes him so remarkable. A scientist who understood that interconnectedness of not just nature, but of human society and the natural world. Right.
So as we kind of start to wrap up this deep dive into Alexander von Humboldt, I think it's worth, taking a minute to reflect on his legacy. Yeah. His enduring legacy. Like, why should we care about this 19th century scientist today?
That's a great question. And I think there are several reasons why. First, Humboldt's vision of nature as this complex, interconnected web of life, that's more relevant today than ever. I mean, especially in the face of climate change and, biodiversity loss.
Yeah, totally. His emphasis on that delicate balance of ecosystems and how all living things are connected, that's a powerful reminder of our own responsibility to protect the planet.
Absolutely. Second, Humboldt's approach to science is just the boundless curiosity.
Yeah.
His meticulous observation and his ability to synthesize these vast amounts of information into a coherent narrative. I mean, that's a model for how we should approach, any complex challenge today.
Totally. In this age of information overload, we need that.
Yeah.
We need Humboldt's ability to see the connections, find the patterns, and communicate these complex ideas, but do it in a clear and engaging way.
Yeah. Right. And finally, I think Humboldt's life story, it's inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
His just unquenchable thirst for knowledge, his willingness to push boundaries, his unwavering commitment to truth. That's a powerful reminder that one person can make a difference.
He really is,
Yeah.
He's a reminder to all of us that we all have a role to play in understanding and protecting this natural world. So before we wrap up our deep dive into the invention of nature, I want to go back to that Chimborazo climb one more time. I don't know, it's just such a powerful image for me, standing on that peak with Humboldt, seeing the world through his eyes.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Just imagine the thin air, the wind whipping around you. But below, I mean, this incredible tapestry of life is unfolding. From that vantage point, you could almost grasp what he saw, those intricate connections, that delicate balance that's holding everything together.
It's like a light bulb moment, realizing that if you mess with one part of nature, it's going to have ripple effects everywhere else.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, If we had really listened to his warnings back then, if we had taken them to heart, would we even be facing the same environmental challenges that we are today?
It's a huge question. I mean, he was already talking about deforestation, about the destructive impacts of colonialism, and this is back in the 1800s. Humboldt was centuries ahead of his time in recognizing how human actions could disrupt the delicate balance of ecosystems.
Yeah. But he wasn't all like doom and gloom, was he?
No.
I mean, he was a pretty optimistic guy, right?
Yeah.
He believed in the power of knowledge and human ingenuity. So if he were alive today, what do you think he would be focused on? Climate change solutions, leading a global conservation effort.
Knowing Humboldt, knowing his insatiable curiosity and his drive, probably all of the above. He wouldn't be content to just study the problem. He'd be out there rallying people to action. Can you imagine him giving a TED Talk?
Oh, my God.
Captivating the audience with his adventures, urging everyone to embrace a more sustainable future.
Oh, I can totally picture it. The crowd would be hanging on his every word, just completely enthralled by his passion and his vision. It's a shame he's not here to guide us through these challenging times. But at least we have his work,
We do.
his writings, his legacy.
Yeah, and to inspire us.
Exactly. And that's why this deep dive into the invention of nature, it's been so valuable, I think. It's this reminder of the power of observation, the importance of seeing how everything is interconnected, and the responsibility that we all share for the future of our planet.
Yeah. So as we wrap up our exploration of Humboldt's world, I'm left with this renewed sense of wonder, a deeper appreciation for this intricate web of life that surrounds us. What about you?
Absolutely. It's been an incredible journey, tracing Humboldt's footsteps from the salons of Europe all the way to the peaks of the Andes. And to everyone listening, I encourage you, pick up a copy of The Invention of Nature. Embark on your own Humboldtian adventure. You might be surprised at what you discover, not just about the natural world, but about yourself as well.
Beautifully said. Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive into Alexander von Humboldt and the invention of nature. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of Humboldt alive in your own pursuit of knowledge and wonder.